I want us to think about two themes: racism and identity politics. I was in a meeting one time with a group of colleagues. Somehow we got to talking about racism, and as the conversation progressed, I became increasingly confused. It seemed to me that everyone in the room had agreed on a definition of racism that I must have missed the memo on. The definition goes something like this: only white people can be racist, and everyone else is just prejudiced. Because racism is a system of power, and since white people benefit the most from systems of power, they are implicitly racist. Now, I find this definition to be, quite frankly, really fucking dumb, at best, and dangerously irresponsible at worst. And I imagine the only reason many people subscribe to it is because of this weird moment that we are in where we not only assume, but actually demand that people go along with certain kinds of ideological, political, and moral positions simply because of their actual or perceived identity. Case in point. Yesterday, during a workshop I was hosting, a group of students asked if the next one could be on the topic of cultural appropriation. I said I was enthusiastic about such a workshop on the topic because I find the idea of cultural appropriation as it's articulated contemporarily pretty absurd. The group I was talking to laughed, but this one white boy looked at me as if I shot him in his bleeding liberal heart and asked, "Bro, where do your politics come from?" I wanted to say studying cultural anthropology, but he called me bro and I was triggered. So I said the only reason you're so shocked by my statement is because I'm a black guy. And you assume you know the politics of all black people since you read Teen Vogue. Needless to say, he was embarrassed. And I kept it pushing. Or I'll do even one better. From day one, I told some of my friends and family that I thought Jussie Smollett was lying, and I got flack for not believing him, especially because I'm also a black man. But because he was black and gay, we automatically assumed, and in fact, many people felt compelled by that alone to believe his story, despite the fact, and I really want you to hear this, no sane black person would ever in their life keep the noose that was used to pretend lynch them around their neck for as long as he did. All I'm saying is, I'm gonna need that same liberal energy that we have for white people who pull hoaxes almost exactly like this, but because we stay out here assuming, expecting, and demanding that people perform and adhere to certain kinds of politics and ideology simply because of how they identify, I'll wait. But that's none of my business, so let me get back to the definitions of racism, because I'd like to show you all why we should move away from it in identity-based politics. Now, when I was a young boy of about 8 years old and still the same height as I am now at 22, I was at the park having a grand old time. I saw a group of kids who were relatively close to my age, went up to them and asked if I could play. They were about to start another game of tag, and I'm quite fast and tag is my shit. The leader of the group looked at me and said something in a language I didn't speak. The kids snickered, and I was confused and asked again, but this time for the answer to be said in English. And the boy said, without so much as a blink, "We don't play with niggers." I went home, and it wasn't until I was 20 when my dad asked me in the car ride home if anyone had ever called me a nigger, and I told him yes, when I was 8. He pulled the car over and asked me, how come I never said anything? And I said, I don't know. Fast forward a few years to my first time in junior high school. I walked into the wrong classroom on my first day, asked the teacher at the front of the room if I was in the right room, to which she nicely replied, "No, sweetie, it's on the floor below." And some student in the back called me a dumbass, and the class laughed. For the next few months, I found myself occasionally hiding in a stall, and in one instance being forcibly stuffed into a locker while being called an uppity Oreo nigger. At the most important age of 16, my best friend in high school didn't invite me to her sweet 16 because her mother didn't like black men, and didn't want any at her daughter's party. Everyone who was invited was in complete disbelief when I wasn't at the court table that night, and when they found out, the sympathies came pouring in. Needless to say, we aren't best friends anymore. For my next act, I was getting ready for a party with a friend of mine at her house. Her grandmother, a seemingly nice woman, thought that I was her granddaughter's boyfriend. My friend explained to her that I was not, and the grandmother said something again in a language I couldn't understand. Later on, I asked my friend what her grandma had said, and she was embarrassed. I asked her to tell me because I could take it, and she said that her grandmother prefers she bring home a nice man with fair skin and lighter eyes. The one part about this that fucked me up, and I think about it almost every week, is that the grandmother was a shade darker than me. My last act happened during the week of my college graduation. I was heading back to Bard, having come from just getting my suit tailored. The train was crowded, and I decided to sit next to what I thought was a regular dude. A few minutes in, it was clear that this man was visibly uncomfortable. I thought he was sick, asked him if he was all right, and he flinched away from me, grabbed his things, and said, "Sitting next to you makes me uncomfortable." He got off at the next station, which shocked me even more, because according to his ticket, he should have gotten off for another 4. When I got back to Robbins, I cried. But the fucked up thing was, I cried because I finally experienced the racism of a white person and everything felt right. You see, the group of kids at the park were Puerto Rican. The bullies who shoved me in a locker for 2 periods were black. The best friend who didn't invite me to her Sweet 16 was Trinidadian Indian. And the female friend and her abuela were Dominican. A Southeast Asian student here once asked me if I thought that only white people could be racist, and I said no. She secretly confided in me that she felt the same way. And if I'm being honest, the most racist people I know, or rather, the people with the most racist tendencies, in my experience, have never been white. They've been persons of color. Now, I'm not negating the idea that racism from white people doesn't exist. I think our operational definition of racism as it stands, and its implied focus on some innate power that white people have over all others, distracts us from the fact that racism is not always power plus prejudice. And if for argument's sake, we actually take the idea seriously, that it is power plus prejudice, then we have to realize that everyone has varying degrees of power depending on the circumstance. And since everyone has prejudices, then technically speaking, everyone is racist. Many people might disagree with this, but think about my examples. Are you going to tell me that when I cried in a locker for 2 periods and no one came to get me, that I had the same power as the black kids who did it? Or maybe you might argue that the instance of racism with the white man trumps all the rest of them because he's white, and white equals more power than all. Either way, something has to give. And I refuse to go along with this current definition of racism as the be-all, end-all. And you shouldn't give it much energy either, just because you're black, white, yellow, slightly crisp, or waffle colored. Now, in the larger vein of the problem with relying too much on identity, I worry a lot about what we're doing to our kids. I'm a health teacher, and a lot of the things that get said in my classroom, as you might imagine, range from the comical to the intimately personal. One day I'm asked, is it okay to eat ass, and if so, how? We could talk afterwards if you're interested. The next day, a student wants to know if they will ever be loved because they're trans. Well, one day last semester, my students and I were discussing psychosocial health and secretive illnesses. These are things such as depression, anxiety. I listed on the board why it is that adolescents, especially, might not want to talk about their illnesses and suffer silently and alone. A lot of the usual stuff came up. No one listens to me, I'm ashamed, black people don't get depressed, that's for white people, etc. However, one thing quite honestly depressed me. In my class of 18 students, 10 of them described that the reason they didn't say anything about their illness was because of this idea that since they were white, they have privilege and power. And since they have privilege and power, and other people have it worse off than them, they should be thankful and shouldn't complain. These are 13-year-old students who are silently suffering because we keep telling or implying, for better or for worse, that white people are inherently toxic, evil, racist, or what have you. The language of power and privilege poses just as much a health threat to individuals in as much as we use it to help fight health disparities. I have a vested interest in the health of my students because I teach them about it, but I find myself at a crossroads. They themselves also buy into these notions that they are inherently racist and hold all the power in the world over minorities, despite the fact that many of them are poor from rural areas and have long histories of familial drug addiction, sexual assault, homelessness, and abuse. And it's impinging on their abilities to seek help because of how internalized it is. So where do we go from here? Do we get real about racism and classism in our own communities? Do we allow people to choose for themselves their own politics instead of demanding groupthink? Do we stop assuming that we know a person's politics because of how they look, who they fuck, and what genitalia they got? Or do we carry on and pretend as if the world isn't on fire around us as we cancel this, problematize that, and call out and shame individuals left, right, and center for sometimes and quite often trivial things? Ask yourself this: when is the last time, truly, that you allowed yourself to transcend your identity and just be yourself? Or phrased differently, how many times have you let your performance of identity constrain you from being who you actually wanted to be? When you come up with the answer, please let me know, because I'm struggling with it, and I know you are too.
To myself, even if I question God or I question y'all, I never question love because the pain is reflective in my suicidal withdrawals. Yeah, you always know how to listen to your friends, but won't admit that you're using their problems to ignore yours. You don't want to think about shit. You want to bury it in laughs and alcohol and expect it to go away when the truth is you push it to the back of your head. Why won't you admit to your friends that they don't even know you? And even though they know you for years, they still don't know the vulnerable you. That when they poke fun at you and you laugh, that really they are breaking you down. Now you feel like shit, but you have to laugh because that's what you're known for. Everybody knows you laugh, they can hear it from miles away, that's what they tell you. But you go home feeling like shit. You tell yourself that everything's all good. Yeah, so you got issues. Fuck your distorted view of your body image. Fuck that your mama is dying that her medical problems might eventually pass on to you and your kids. And you're scared of seeing your brother's caller ID because you're afraid of the phone call letting you know that she gone. Fuck that your pops is dead and you yet to come to terms with it. You won't even ask your mama how he died because you don't know how to come to terms with pain, so you hide behind what you think happiness should look like. And that one attempt your mom tried to take her life affected you. That when you saw the empty pill bottle, you saw life without your last parent. You were scared and hopeless. And years later, your brother calls you letting you know that he contemplates killing himself on a daily. And now the one person in the world that understands you on a different level was going through the same thing as you and your moms. But you didn't say anything about how you have the same thoughts because you didn't want to seem selfish. You need to be the one person in your family that had his shit together, at least your mental shit. But you ain't no different. You begin to question if those suicidal tendencies were inherent. You just wish you had more control over your life. You never had control over anything, not even over your physical and mental state. You wish you could open up without using alcohol. You wish tears wasn't shed only in death. That people knew what you went through. That when you go home, those medical bills didn't stack up. That stepping into those medical facilities didn't have a mental toll. And that when you don't take your medication, your body didn't start to reject itself. That you didn't become a robot and mentally give up. Those suicidal thoughts are more prevalent than ever. Fuck, yo, I just want to end it all. And sometimes you sit there in front of your girlfriend and friends and the anxiety begins to reproduce because you fear they'll break you beyond repair. Or they'll leave you without a thought. And it's because you place your self-worth in your mental stability and the security of your relationships. And it's maybe that you can't trust them, but really you can't trust yourself because you base trust on what the world has given you, and the world ain't gave you shit with problems. This is a note to God. Either I question y'all or I question love, I never question God because the pain is reflective in my suicidal withdrawals. Yo, God, I still don't know if I believe in you. My blackness has created this one-sided love-hate relationship I have with you. And I hate it, but when I go back home, I cringe when people give you credit for their own strength and their own willingness to prevail through the struggle. And I don't know if it's fair for me to feel this way, but at times I just want to tell people that you don't deserve them. And I question whether at night when I pray to you, whether I should be praying to my own mother, because I have concrete evidence on what she has provided for me. And this is a time in my life when I need it. And this is a time in my life where I need to question a lot of things. Like why you made me poor and not happy. Why you made my mom sick. Why my brother couldn't have the same opportunities as me. Why literally everyone in my family is depressed. And why when we pray to you, you won't answer back. But I still love you, and I recognize my blessings. I'm here at college where food and shelter isn't a problem, but my mama called me telling me she can't afford to eat at times. That I have a supporting friend group and family. That I was able to afford an education that exponentially matured me mentally. That I'm standing here right now with the capability to give my story with no remorse. But I just don't think I can thank you for it. And I hope to be able to rebuild our relationship someday. I just have some things I need to work out with myself before I call on you again. This is a note to my friends. Even if I question love or I question God, I never question y'all because the pain is reflective of my suicidal withdrawals. I'm in love with you. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm in love with your laugh and your endurance and your willingness to push through ups and downs. You are what I can't be, and I'm envious. My insecurities are so hidden that they are blatant. And you may poke fun of me at times, but you mean well. And the diversity not in our cultures, but in our personalities may clash at times. But I value that we have taken our friendship a step further. And I value that I can sit down with you at times and joke and laugh. And that we may have combos that convert my way of thinking. And although you may not know it, that a lot of the conversations have talked me off the ledge. And I have a feeling that it's the same for you too. We shouldn't take friendship for granted. I treat y'all like family because y'all are my family. And at times y'all feel more like family than what I have back at home. And I just need to take this time to say thank you. And thanks to you, I'm alive. Thank you, Jazandra, Anaya, Mondo, Greta. Thank you, Matt, Jazak, Saul, Aslan, SG, Josh. Thank you, Lily, God, A.K. Ruby, Asia, Liv, Lotus, Oscar, Edgar, and Jalil. I love y'all.
Family is full of women who don't know. They don't know why he acts that way or why he drinks. They don't know why his eyes are always bloodshot. They don't know why he wasn't like this before, because he was so funny and charismatic until one day something just changed. They don't know why he yells even though he promised he'd never yell again. They don't know why he won't come home. They don't know why they chose him to be the father of their child. They don't know what they did wrong. They don't know why he won't call back after all of the voicemails they left. They don't understand why they keep lying to their children when their children already understand and have understood for years. They don't understand how this happened. How are your children supposed to understand reciprocated love when you yourself did not receive this love? How are your children supposed to understand reciprocated love when you don't even know what that means? My family is full of women who don't know. I'd be lying if I said I didn't believe in generational curses. I'm consistently working to unload the emotional baggage of the generations of Black women before me. Beautiful, strong, no-nonsense Black women who took nonsense from the men they loved. Generations of Black women who fought to be free, but never left because leaving means tearing your own heart apart. Generations of Black women in toxic and abusive relationships who fought to be free from Black men. The Black men they were supposed to love, and the Black men who were supposed to love them back. Thank you.
Shout out to Lotus. Shout out to Eli. Shout out to Alvin. Shout out to G Trust. Shout out to Grandma Doreen. These are my blacks. BLACTS. These are my blacks, my experiences are my facts. My reasoning is all I had, no resources, so it's your bad for not knowing what my mind on. If only I could clean off these whites like Lysol. Cause they saying my skin dirty. I'ma die early. I ain't gonna be there till 8, 7:30. So hold up, who gonna correct you and stand up for me? Remember how your ancestors was bagging us like groceries? Using us like it was what they need, killing our seeds, separating our families for generations. So now I'm left with no memories. Analyzing these results from Ancestry.com. Dead ass. Dead ass. My brothers will lose their life for a piece of the pie. I'm a black oiler. You the black destroyer. You drilled the plot too, and I'll kill you if I got to. So stop you. Better know better. I drop back, I reload, I'm shocked. I'm shot, but I'm not shocked. And I'm tired of the BS you prop. Canceling the cancel, how about that? You don't care about what you saying, man. That's not rap. That's just chat, a cap, a whole lot of crap. While your lips chat till you dying of thirst. And what's worse, seeing you drawing your hearse, a true metaphor for how you was living at first. The longest memory I slept in, the longest memory I stepped in, I didn't realize it was a weapon. For all the feelings I kept in, harbored resentment I slept in, killing me inside while my demons died. A double-edged sword keeping me alive. And who would have thought it was a way to live? And maybe dying, but with my breath I could save some kids. When the day of reckoning comes, I know I'll be eternal in the kingdom, because this king's not dumb. Life is like a revolving door. What goes around comes around, and that's for sure. So when I say you drunk too much, that's whack, bro. Look at this black boy, he done blacked out, drinking knowledge from the pool, and it's crazy. He drowning in the sorrows of the truth that made him. And honesty, here's some honest coffee to wake your ass up. True words stick like glue, because you can't get them off you. You see what your lies do. They send you down a slippery slope, one where you can fall and mess around, slit your throat. Messy is your false hope. You sitting with the wrong folk. I'm praying to a true God and I can see you all hoax. We fiending to go to Yale. Why we giving them cash, man? That shit getting stale. They got billions in the endowment. Black body experience, how about we invest in it? Bald blackness gets blacker when we put a white vest on it. Black body experience, let's invest in it. Bald blackness gets blacker with the white vest on it. What I'm saying, I hope you figure out, it's the black on white contrast that I'm thinking about. Embrace the black more when you see less. DJ Khaled profiting off of Jamaica, but hey, we the best. It's funny because it's the least black place I've probably been. Yet it's a place I felt my blackness and learned about it most. When I went to Jamaica, I know I am what I am, but I realized that temporal and physical distance is frail. And I gave him my all, and I told him everything was for sale. Yet I still love these lonely nights. The ability to learn how to ride a bike, learn how to fly my kite so high I might remember that my homie just died and they left him on the roadside. And the only thing left to bury was his pride, because when they found him, he was decomposed inside. And it was 3 months later after getting stabbed to death. Y'all know what that means? I don't know what that means. It's that life that they do for the pictures too. Yeah, a picture can speak 1,000 words, but just observe all the lies you heard and filter the truth. So they don't no longer mislead the youth and hold on to you because they might kill you too. Y'all privileged and shit. Y'all talk through walls, scared to confront the truth that you might just be like Trump. Think you better because you consider him dumb, but where I'm from, they hit the drum and let you know you in the dump, and that's true shit, and you allergic to it. Why break out in a rash rage for the shit you do win? Not much of a difference between y'all and Justin Smollett. Chicago PD said he did it because he was dissatisfied with his salary. And the police is dangerous to believe, I know. And the evidence could be for sure, but y'all dangerous too, because y'all do it too. Because y'all want some attention. You take on a new oppression And that's what you do for a mention. And I'm shaking my head. And barred shade, what a bad idea. Barred shade, what a bad idea. For fools who live amongst trees. They hide their lies behind leaves, inside scarred that they might be wrong for what they believe. Maybe not wrong, but persecuted by a majority. But if you were never favored and misunderstood, then they playing weak. When I promise, you could talk and learn about it. These barred kids might give you burns about it, but I ain't from barred. I'm from my mom, my soul, my God. And if you a learner, let's step it up together and let's become earnest together. Because I invest in a person willing to sacrifice for better. Forget whoever trying to take you out this storm, we can weather together. And some of my brothers I'm closest with, I realize that I don't know them for shit. We close because of our experiences, but we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it. We just walk around it. And if we need that help, sometimes it's too late because we talk around it. And as far as women go, black women, as far as black women go, well, they go further if it wasn't for the patriarchy. If it wasn't a burden. And I promise you that we all hurting. And my trauma is my person. Guiding me through life, but it can click, right? If I try. Blacks. B-L-A-C-T-S. Blacks. These last bars right here not mine, but find the song, rewind and listen and take your time. I'll give you these quotes. I seen the truth when I was buried in my shame. We already shared the pain, how about we finally share the blame? Get what's bitter out my bones, get this hatred out my veins. Don't look for change, be the change. That's from Boogie, Who's Fault? And a monologue to a dialogue, I ask that you guys say this with me real quick. I seen the truth when, say it. Damn, man, I can't say it together. I seen the truth when I was buried in my shame. We already share the pain. How about we finally share the blame? Get what's bitter out my bones. And get this hatred out my veins. Don't look for change, be the change. And say this last thing, even if you don't believe it. I love you. You don't have to believe it, say it. I love you. Me. You. Regardless. Blacks. B-L-A-C-T-S. You don't have to. Look, even in your mistakes, you can still strive to be great. Don't repeat that either. That's the last thing I gotta say. And as far as me, if you want to know more about my work, April 27th, come through to my concert.
A cloudless, empty day turns the black skin of the deepest ocean's blue. The moon at night lends her moonbeams, and her crescent can fit itself against the cheek of the sea. The sun, full and shouting on a hot day, leaves a trail of orange flames against the mouth of the water's waves. And I wish I was the sea. The sea who holds all of the colors of the sky, the moon, the sun on her surface, even when she doesn't want to. Learning to live in my skin has been time spent running away from the blue, blue sky. Time spent looking in the mirror wondering who is this girl, this blue, blue girl who cries so damn much, who feels so damn much. Time spent running away from the blue, blue sky, time spent running from a reflection. Learning to live in my skin has been mistaking someone else for my everything. Learning that I am my everything. Learning to live in my skin is remembering that I can be the rivers that are strong enough to break through rocks, but quiet enough to be swayed by the wind. Learning to love my skin is seeing myself in the bark of trees which stretch and crack but do not break because what's inside of me is growing towards the sky. Learning to live in our skin is realizing that we can be the droplets that raise the sea. Learning to live in our skin is recognizing that not only are we the sun, the moon, and the sky, but we are the sea that holds all of the colors.
We have contains a story. I'm a huge believer in stories and how items can truly represent different moments and stages in our lives. Items give meaning because they trigger different emotions or feelings that can either empower us or bring us down. One of the items that I wish to talk to you all about today is an item we carry with us every day, but never truly understand its power and meaning. Something we literally can't live without. That is our house keys. My mother got me my first set of keys to our Bronx apartment when I was in 6th grade. We pulled up to our local hardware store and I watched as the locksmith assembled what would be my first set of keys. As we were waiting, she asked me what key accessories would I like to buy. I searched thoroughly throughout the store and settled for a red Aries octagon metal plate that describes the personality of an Aries and our lucky days and numbers. Very personable, hardworking, and ambitious, successful. My lucky numbers were 7, 2, 3, and my lucky day is Sunday. As she gave me these keys, my mother clenched my hand and looked dead in my eyes and told me, Papito, I trust you with these keys. You now have access to our house. You better not lose these keys or else. You see, I cut her off saying, okay, mommy, because I didn't want to hear the rest of that statement. Sadly, that was short-lived because I was a clumsy little chubby boy. I always lost my keys, but would never tell my mom. I always lost them in the street, in the house, at school, on the basketball court, in the pool, in my room, or somehow in my sleep. Because I was a kid, I never understood the importance of my keys. We just used them to get into the house. It's not that deep. But it was when my life started to change that I began to realize how important space and how important my keys are in my access to that space. My mother meant the entire world to me. And at some point, she was my world. Her passing traumatized me in ways that 7 years later I am still working on to heal from. To this day, I still don't know how she died. Something is being hidden from me. All I remember is seeing her in a hospital bed connected to a respirator. My sister took me to a pizza shop and we sat down together. She told me that my mother was in a bad place, and she gave me a choice. She asked me whether I want to save her, or I put her on a machine, or pull the plug. I told her to pull the plug. Imagine making such a decision at the age of 13. She was scared to let go, scared to let her boys and her daughter go into the world that exists for us all. My sister told her, Mommy, you can go. The boys are going to be okay. The boys are going to be okay. That was my last memory of her. Although her passing proved one of the most devastating parts of my life, she left me with these keys. From that day after, I struggled with being in a comfortable space that I felt I was most happy in even today. I was upset with the places I lived before in high school. They just honestly were uncomfortable. I moved 4 times. I lived in places where the bathroom didn't work, no AC, no heat, windows broken, etc. These honestly were hard spaces to enjoy. Despite having keys into these places, I was not happy with them. However, fast forwarding into college, I realized that space is the most painful, but yet the most rewarding aspect of our lives we could ever get. Space is confrontational and forces you to reflect and think of yourself, and boy, I struggled. I made mistakes, wish I could have done better in different situations, but over time I grew, and I'm still growing, as do we all. Over the years, I realized that happiness in space is not always what is around you, but what you decide to do within that space. Your goal is to create the best environment you want for you, or you'll be upset with the shit that you just have no control over. You see, my current apartment isn't the most comfortable. So what I did year by year was change it. I organized my room like how I wanted it, added the colors and patterns that I desired, and made it comfortable for me. It is a work in progress. But looking at my keys, they remind me of my transition into my personal space and all the work I've put in to cultivate it. It's that feeling of putting that key in the door that makes you excited to step into your space or utterly terrified. And trust me, I've had both feelings. So what does that do a race? Well, every moment of your life You'll be given access to a space, and now all spaces will be comfortable for you. A predominantly white space as a black person is not comfortable. The ways in which the cliquey black communities in predominantly white spaces behave is not comfortable. And the ways we handle conflict is not comfortable. The way I used to handle conflict was not comfortable. The appropriation of black culture is not comfortable. And most importantly, the ways in which we demean ourselves and doubt ourselves is not comfortable. So you must realize that not everyone is given the keys you have been given in your life. My mother gave me the biggest blessing I can ever get, and that is the key to not only access to space, but the power of being able to make the space best for me. It is the blessing of the holder who is able to gain such a tool into their own pocket and no one else's, but is actually the biggest blessing of them all. So before I leave, it's going to be pretty corny. I want you all at some point to step into, before you step into your dorm, into your office, your workspace, whatever space you step into, to look at your keys and say thank you. Because without them, you would not be in the stages you are in now. Look at your keys, look at the accessories, see where they came from and how much they've changed. See what kind of keys you have now and the spaces you have access to. Your house keys give you the power to change your environment through your own effort. And serve as a reminder of how much growth you have done in your life, but also how much more you have to go. You decide how you react, who you interact with, and how you shape everything around you. You decide how you grow, or how you grew, the decisions you make, and how you grow from those decisions. You have that power as a black individual, as a person of color from the hood, black or POC from privileged backgrounds, fancy households, and great schooling, as a light skin, as a dark skin, as a woman of color, as a black woman, as an LGBTQI plus a gender fluid black or person of color, or as a black male or male of color. Your power is limitless because, as Anaya said, you come from a legacy of greatness. And no matter what happens to you from here on forward after you graduate, you have the greatest power of them all, the power to shape your world to how you see fit. To end off with a famous quote by Denise Froman, your wound is probably not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So just go out there and live your life for you. Just don't drag nobody through your own problems. Thank you.
The most disrespected woman in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. Malcolm X. To all the men of color on campus, I'm here today to speak my truth and the truth of so many other women of color on this campus. I know that many of you may feel indifferent about what I'm here to say, but I honestly don't give a fuck. And before I talk my shit, I know everyone in this room has heard something about me. I don't know what you may know or what you think you may know about me, but what I do know is that I've never known myself better than who I am right here in this moment. I'm tired of the bullshit, lack of accountability, and secrecy around the way that some of the women of color on campus are treated by some of you. For me, my story begins my freshman year. I had a crush on a guy that was on the basketball team. I thought he was a gentleman. He was cute and funny and seemed like he had everything together. You know how things go. He started to flirt with me and I flirted back, and I genuinely wanted to get to know him more. So one day I asked him if he wanted to hang out with me and some of my friends. We ended up driving to Kingston and he helped me with some of my groceries. I let him come back to my dorm to chill with my roommate and two of my other friends. He took it upon himself to get in my bed and get underneath my sheets while everyone was still in my room. He asked me to get in bed and lay next to him. I thought it was kind of weird, but I did it anyway. Once I got in my bed to lay next to him, he told me to get underneath the covers with him. Once I did, I realized that he had taken his pants off and only had his boxers on. I felt uncomfortable because my friends were still in the room, so I immediately tried to get out of the bed. He pulled me back and just told me that he just wanted to lay there with me. I did for a while, until he used his leg to try to open my legs. Imagine, he was 6'5" and a lot stronger than me. After he tried to forcefully open my legs, I hopped out of my bed and told him that he needed to leave. A few days later, I ended up telling a few male upperclassmen what happened to me. They assured me that they would talk to him to get him to see what he did was wrong and tell him that he needed to apologize to me. And rest assured, later on that night, I received a long apology text from the basketball player. A couple of days later, he texted me asking me if he could make things up to me, and we just hang out and watch movies in his dorm. Me, still naive and having a crush on him, I told him I only wanted to watch movies, and he agreed, so I went. We watched The Barbershop 3 and The Conjuring 2. Everything was cool. He hadn't tried anything. We had just finished watching The Conjuring and he kissed me. I kissed him back. He tried to take off my pants and I said, I'm not trying to do all that. I just want to do this. We kept kissing and soon enough he tried to pull my pants down again. I pulled them up and he got up off the bed and walked over to his desk and got condoms out of his drawer. I asked him, what is that for? And his response was telling me to put it on him. I continued to ask him why he thought that we were having sex. We went back and forth for a while until he told me, if you don't put this condom on me, then I'm just going to have to fuck you raw. And in that moment I froze. I let what happened happen. I laid down still while he took my pants off and put himself inside me. There was no kissing, nothing. I just laid there. Once he finished, I put my clothes on and left without saying goodbye. I stopped speaking to him after that. I remember telling my friends that I felt weird about what happened, but couldn't explain why. It seemed as though right after I stopped talking to him, he began to bash me by telling anyone with an ear that I was a hoe and lazy in bed because I just laid there. I hated hearing some of the things that people, especially men on this campus, began to say about me. That label of being a hoe has followed me ever since. When you hear people talk about you so bad, even when they say things that you know aren't true, you begin to ask yourself whether or not if that is who you really are. I began to believe the things that people had to say about me, not really stepping back to tell myself that they were wrong. Yes, I have had sex with men on campus, not even enough to count on one hand. Yes, I love to shake my ass and drop into a split at parties any chance I get, especially when that Hennessy gets into my system. And yes, I am a thick woman who is more than comfortable with her body. But none of this means that I deserve to be subjected to the treatment that I've endured over the last 3 years. None of this means that I deserve to be belittled to only being of value to this community when it comes to where my pussy has been. I'm not sharing this story with you here today because I wish to be victimized. I only wish that you hear me loud and clear. I want you to know that what has happened to me is not unique. I'm lucky enough that the student that did that to me left after my freshman year. But many women on this campus do not have the same luxury. They get talked about, assaulted, shamed, and belittled to uphold the misogynistic culture that we have here within this community. Many have felt restrained by their stories and silenced by the whispers and rumors that they have kept quiet. And for this reason, I decided to ask a few women about their experiences. One student said, men of color on campus are hypocrites. I've really had to grapple with the things that take you out of your element and make you feel crazy. There's so much shit that goes down here. I wish I could scream because they know that they hide all of this. I would be ashamed if I were them, and sad. For me, I've been forced here to be in a space with someone that I felt invaded my space and made me feel like I was in danger for an entire year. That situation was my first love and it ended up really hurting me. I was so vulnerable and he knew that he had this kind of power over me and he used it against me. After we broke up, he started showing up in places where I was and just sat and stared at me. Even after asking him to stop, he would continue to try texting me or touching me, even when I made it clear how uncomfortable that made me. I told Posse about the way that this man treated me, and they didn't do anything. There was no support for me through that, so I gave up trying. Even after all of this, my spraj is focused on men of color and their own mental health. It makes me sad for incoming women who find these men attractive and try to mess with them. I just wish there was a way of knowing the truth sooner. I just wish that I knew about these men sooner before I had to experience a lot of the things that I experienced. Women on this campus should not have to feel like they are in danger because you occupy this space with them. Even a freshman said, the men of color on campus here have only helped heighten the insecurities that I've carried my entire life, and it sucks. I even had one person match with me on Tinder as a joke to laugh about with his friends. Why is that a joke to you? Where is the respect? Why should I have to feel bad about myself when you all are the trash-ass individuals that made me feel like this? You forced me to face the lack of respect that exists here. I know that you don't value and respect women of color you praise based off of your hidden agendas. I'm sad that for this reason, I don't respect you all as real men. I've seen men that I consider my friends disrespect some of the women of color here. Participating in problematic behavior at parties, cheating on their girlfriends, having sex with their mentees, withholding information surrounding their STD status, and even down to the simplest of things like interrupting a woman while she's speaking in class or at a club meeting, and not supporting the women of color run clubs and TLS projects with the same energy that they support yours. Another woman of color shared with me some of the things that I've noticed about men of color at Bard. 1, some of y'all are high-key colorist and try to hide it by claiming that you respect all women of color, but it's apparent by who you associate with and date. 2, y'all love to protect your friends who sexually assault women or are mentally abusive. Y'all need to call out your friends for being trash. 3, all that support Black women shit is high-key bullshit. When women of color host events or are doing anything that is potentially important for the community, y'all don't really show up and support like other events hosted by men. 4, y'all say you respect women, but do them dirty with other women on campus. And because there are more of us, you feel like you have the power to do so. Hiding actual truth behind your lies. That's interesting. Now remember the story that I told you about the basketball player. I want you to think about how the label of being a hoe has followed me, regardless of who I truly am. I want you to think about how that simple word first came from a man that sexually assaulted me. Now let's fast forward to first semester last year. The last boy, that I tried to date at Bar told me that he didn't need to speak to me with respect or genuinity because a hoe doesn't deserve respect. He told me that I didn't love myself, so why should he? One of the last texts he sent to me reads, "Trust me, I've been said that your name on this campus is garbage, and I should have never even paid you attention. Anthony Theodis Lloyd, you didn't even take the time to get to know who Asha is. You listened to what other men of color had to say about me, and you painted a picture of me that you chose to believe. You have the nerve to say these things about me when you are consistently found in women's DMs. You've had sex with handfuls of women, including white women on this campus, and worst of all, you had sex with someone who was my best friend. And regardless of her fault, you used a dear friend of mine as a pawn. You manipulated her and ultimately played a role in ruining a friendship. Yet, you are a co-head of clubs and TLS projects that serve the purpose of leading the community into a brighter future. You are treated with respect by your fellow brothers at Bard, and you don't even think twice about the pain that you've caused to some of the women you've encountered. Now, for everyone in the audience who is sitting in their seats right now, focusing on the drama in what I've just said, I ask that you focus on the message instead of the mess. What I am saying is that the double standard is so real, and in no way did I deserve what I got. Let's be honest here, because unfortunately, Theo is not an anomaly. I want you to know that just as easy it is for me to publicly say his name, another woman who you have treated badly can do just the same. Every statement from a woman of color that I'm reading to you here today about men of color that have leadership positions on campus, such as peer mentors, club heads, TLS leaders, and more. Before you invalidate me based off of who you think I am, another woman that I spoke to honestly had so many stories about y'all that it was hard to choose one to share. She said, I had a man of color that was mad that I didn't want to date him anymore. I told him I wanted to see other people. He kept trying to change me and make me his girlfriend again. I wouldn't, but we still mess around. I finally agreed to be exclusive with him again, and I thought we were on good terms. But apparently, he wanted revenge and was sleeping with other women behind my back, unprotected. There are so many men of color here that act like they love to treat women right and that they care so much. Those are the same ones that will sleep with anybody because they can, cheat, sleep with friends, pit girls against each other, put female business out there, gossip about personal information, and spread lies and diseases. It's just sad that the POC community is so small, even the good guys aren't all they're cracked up to be. So if there's so much pain and unsaid business that goes on behind closed doors, how can we truly be living together as a community at Bard? I'm asking everyone in this room to allow this letter to be the start of something new. I'm asking that every single man of color on this campus to take a look within yourself. Despite the way that you may have been raised or the things that you've learned over the years, take the time to change your perspective on what it means to really love and appreciate all women. Don't just think about your close friends, sisters, and mother. Think about the girl you stopped talking to because of the things you heard about her, or the girl that intimidates you because she isn't afraid to speak her mind. It is okay to unlearn what you know, to learn something different. Changing the way you treat, see, and value women will not make you any less of a man. It will only make you into the kind of men that we actually want to respect and share space with. And to the men of color that don't hear themselves in this letter, think about the men that are sitting around you right now. The men that you consider to be your brothers, the ones that you sit and talk to in the barbershop or play pickup basketball games with, and the ones that you participate in clubs and outside activities. Do not be a silent bystander to their foolishness. Your cowardice to not speak up and correct their behavior only feeds the monster of misogyny that is breaking our community. And your silence deeply impacts the women you call your friends and the future generations to come. After today, we need to begin engaging in dialogue about the male-dominated culture that we have here within this community with BIOP, Posse, MDC, faculty members, and administration. I'm asking that there is real support for women of color from not only the men of color on campus, but the staff. When women propose TLS projects, club ideas, and other avenues to help engage the community, show up for them. Believe in what they say and actually listen. When you see them, talk to them. Ask them if they're doing okay or if they need help. Reach out to them to see how necessary your support may be. I promise you, there's a chance for a different kind of future to actually exist once we begin holding each other accountable. And to all the women of color in this room, I want you to know that you are loved. You are the roots that hold this community together and the lights that guide us through the moments of darkness. You are strong, and I don't say that to mean that you are invincible. You are strong because you are still here despite the odds that have been against us. You are strong because you know that being vulnerable in moments of pain and uncertainty does not determine your weakness. You hold your head up high, allowing the history of resilient women before you course through your veins and allow the knowledge of our mothers and past mothers fill your spirit. You are beautiful, you are appreciated, and you are so deserving of everything the world has to offer. So I challenge you to look in the mirror. Think about the message and not the mess. If you are confused or feel attacked, I want you to talk to the women in your life. But in doing so, I ask that you are honest. Own up to your shit. Be a better man for you, for your sisters, and for this community. Thank you. Sincerely, Mr.